even like Mace, there's so many big Bad Boys songs that will make that money back. I think, it's a numbers game when it comes to these finance companies.
What's going down, and welcome back to the Emmy No Pain, No Gain podcast. I do have my MEC partners here, though. Good morning, Erinn. Good morning, Dame. How are you feeling?
What up? What up? Yeah, I'm a little tired this morning, but I'm good. Like, things have been going pretty well. So I can't complain. It's just this morning probably could be used an extra 30 minutes.
Why this morning and not every other morning when you're still on the same crazy schedule?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just this week it's been a productive week. I just could use
I'm asking for myself because it's like I wake up and I just feel like I've already gone through a busy ass day because I had the day before and I know that the following day is going to be that busy and crazy too. So that is kind of an exhausting thing. So I just got to wake up, take my vitamins and do my exercise. And you know what I mean? Hopefully that energizes me. But something about this week, are you feeling the same way, Erinn?
I've been traveling nonstop for the last 2 weeks. So I don't know really what day it is. I literally asked somebody at the airport yesterday, like, what is today? So yeah, I won't say that I feel tired because I don't necessarily feel tired, but it just feels like there's a lot going on. Yeah. What
airport did you ask that question at?
The Atlanta airport.
Okay, they're friendly there. I was going to say if it was like O'Hare, people might just...
No, I flew through O'Hare last week or this week. What is today? Today's Thursday. Oh, maybe I asked 2 days ago because the person told me Tuesday. See, I'm just off.
Okay, so it's not just me and Dan. Yeah. We don't have an excuse. I'm just in my house.
Yeah, before we get started, can I give a shout out to my guy? It's a little quick story about my guy, Bari, who's a really dope producer and artist, R&B artist, who I met probably about a year and a half ago now. So I reached out to him. There's a movie called Three Strikes that the Black community typically knows about. But there's a star in that movie called named Brian Hooks. Brian Hooks was a guest on our Blackbusters podcast. He does a lot of independent films now. So I told him that I know a lot of artists. So if he's ever interested in, or if he ever needs music for his independent films, let me know. So he circled back a few days ago and I hit up Bari because he also scores films, and obviously makes dope music. So I hit him up with the opportunity. It's an independent film, so there's typically no budget involved. So, being honest and upfront about that, I hit up Bari with the opportunity and prefaced it with, there's probably no upfront bread. And he told me, he's like, man, Dame, I never turned down an opportunity. And I just want to shout him out because I appreciate that approach, because I think it's going to get him far. I think it's not an opportunity that will pay him immediately, but Brian is super well connected. He's always working on a lot of projects. You just never know where this opportunity is going to lead. So just to have that mindset and that approach to the way he conducts business and the way he's pursuing his career, just want to shout him out because he's a dope person and a really dope artist. And I think those are the type of people that I want to stay connected to because I know that he's going to do well in the next few years and beyond. So shout out to homie Bari and check out his music too, because he's a dope artist. I'm personally a fan.
And he's been on the podcast too. And also, when you say a name like Brian Hooks, it doesn't have the name recognition that like Morris Chestnut does, but he's been in everything.
He's been in a lot of stuff. People might not know the name, but once you Google him, when you listen to this podcast, or if you Google him, when you see the face, you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, I've seen him. And he's been grinding independently. Obviously, I'm learning the movie space now, the independent movie space, because we're finally about to launch our crowdfunding campaign for Big Jaw's first feature film. It should be launching early next week. But Brian's been super helpful in giving us a lot of gems in terms of how he's navigating the movie industry and putting out films and what distribution options are open to us so that we can, maximize the monetization when we put our film out. So shout out to Brian as well.
It feels like a lot of the stuff that's happening in the music business is happening in the film industry too, especially. This just got me thinking about like the Russ model where you appear in the big corporate films and then you go independent, just kind of the way that Russ went, got, the major deal and is now doing it independently.
There's definitely a lot of similarities because obviously you can go direct to fans with a movie as well. Movies take a lot more money to make, especially if you want it to look and feel good. And I think also with the rise of platforms like Tubi, especially Black creators are making a lot of money on Tubi. Not all of them, obviously. It's like Spotify. The ones that do well are reaping the benefits, but you could definitely put your movie on Tubi and nobody watch it. But if you're able to drive traffic, we recently put Jaws web series. We reformatted it so that it could work as a series on Tubi because they have different specifications. Each episode has to be at least 20 minutes. So sometimes we need to put 2 episodes together for it to be 20 minutes. And we only put one series on Tubi, and we'll be making from the first month more than half of what we make on YouTube, and all of Jaws content is on YouTube. Lesbian Homie, everything. So Tubi is becoming another platform for creators to make money if you can drive traffic and generate streams. So right now we're already prepping for some of the series that he's already done to put on Tubi, because I feel like if we have 4 or 5 series on Tubi, we'll probably be making more money on Tubi than we will on YouTube month to month. So
is it free to the user or do people pay to be on Tubi?
It's free. It's ad driven.
Okay.
So they have a lot of independent stuff on Tubi, but they also have older blockbuster films. I was watching Girls Trip the other day. I was watching White Man Can't Jump. Some of the movies that we review on Blockbusters every week are also on Tubi. So it's a free platform. But yeah, that's why I think, it bring back to the relevance of music. You always have to explore different platforms that pop up to see if there's an opportunity there, because things are always evolving. So that's why it's important for artists and their teams just to kind of be up on, the different monetization options, so you can be a first mover and capture that revenue early, because the game might change, or the game will change very often. So anyway, didn't mean to go on that long about Tubi, but it might be something that people want to hear if they have independent film or web series, because again, you can reformat your web series and hopefully it meets the specifications of Tubi. I don't know if people see the quality threshold for Tubi is not that high.
Well, that's why there are all those memes about it and blah blah.
Yeah. So
but
sometimes
for the record, the quality threshold for music is non-existent.
Right. Yes. But you would think, because Tubi's not a self-service platform, you have to go through a distributor to get it on Tubi. Film Hub might do it. I think I'm not, don't quote me on this. Film Hub, I believe, is similar to a Two Lost. But you typically have to go through a distributor that takes a percentage to get your stuff on Tubi. So there is some quality control, but a lot of stuff squeaks by, and some of the movies are so bad that they're funny. So,
well, I want to talk about that related to music, based on a tweet, and then actually a couple tweets and some ensuing conversation. But first, I know you sent a follow-up article to Erinn and I. We discussed the Diddy returning the publishing to former Bad Boy artists topic. And there was additional context provided by a former Bad Boy artist by the name of Aubrey O'Day. She was in Danity Kane. Now, I don't believe she was signed to Diddy when she was a solo artist. And so I don't think her solo projects fall under that, Bad Boy publishing umbrella. But she had something interesting to say. So basically, to review, if you're not familiar with what was going on, there was talk of Diddy being offered, I think it was $900 million or something for the publishing interest in former Bad Boy artists. And instead of taking the 900 million, he publicized that he was returning that publishing equity to the artists. So that included Notorious Big's estate. That included Mace, I believe. Mace has been outspoken about having signed a bad publishing deal with Diddy. That this is according to Mace. So Erinn and I debated, what exactly that meant, because there are no specifics in any of these articles about anything. We don't really even know what the publishing necessarily means, because music journalists don't really speak the lingo, so they can't explain it beyond vague terms. Do they actually mean publishing, or do they mean just equity in the overall underlying composition? How was that deal structured? We'll never know, I don't think, because no one's just going to show their contract on camera, which I feel like if they did, that would solve a lot of confusion. Maybe like even with you, Dame, when you were going through the situation with Hopsin, it's like if he had just shown the contract and been like, here, look, Dame's robbing me, and like in black and white you see that Dame is not in fact robbing him, maybe that would have, but probably not, because the fans are idiots. So I don't know. What are your first impressions on this Diddy story, and then we can go to the update.
Where was the reporting that it was worth 900 million? That what because I just wouldn't believe that if publishing, like if the publishing that he owned is worth 900 million, that he just gave that back, because there's conflicting reporting, and obviously every artist is different. I just think there's so much information that we don't have to like come to a final conclusion on how, or at least I feel about it. Because I think it was Mark Curry who did a post as well, a video post, and he was commenting on Diddy giving him back his publishing. And he was like, I forget the analogy he used, but he was like, the publishing's not, or at least his publishing's not worth much anymore, because, it's that his music is not being streamed it's not being placed in television and film. Publishing isn't worth nothing if the music isn't being used, right? So he was saying like, yeah, it was used a bunch in the early 2000s. It would have been great to own the publishing then, because music was spinning on the radio and a lot of royalties were generated. But he's like, thanks, but thanks for nothing, because it ain't worth shit to me now. So he's speaking for his particular case.
My bad. I said 900 million. That's Diddy's net worth. I think it was. Yeah. My bad. It was millions. I'm trying to find not 900 million, 9 figures. They said Diddy was offered a 9-figure deal. So that's hundreds of millions. Again, they don't say who offered the deal. They don't give a specific number. Right. This is on basically every news publication that covered it. I can say like Hip Hop DX was one, TMZ was another, Variety magazine, Yahoo News, The Griot, BBC. So not necessarily just crummy little publications, but I think that speaks to what Erinn and I were talking about, which is that the average journalist, the average musician doesn't know enough about the music industry to speak on it in any great detail, unfortunately. And so when you're a journalist who's writing about Diddy, you're not going to sit there and read Donald Passman and then go out and experience it for long enough to figure out exactly what the holes in this article are. You're just going to report on the talking points you're given. And that's what the average consumer wants to read. Oh my God, 9 figures. Oh, this is, and so this could be a PR move on Diddy's part. And, I think it worked because a lot of people saw this article, and what choice do they have but to believe what's being reported. He turned down 9 figures. He's giving back publishing. People who are reading that article don't even know what the hell publishing is versus sound recording versus writer's split. You know, whatever. They don't understand how royalties from publishing are even generated. So it feels more like a PR move. But there's backlash.
Yeah. I'm leaning, from what I know, and again, my opinion is not cemented, but from what I know, it definitely, I would lean more towards feeling like a PR move than, you know, artists now going to be getting a lot of value from having their publishing back. But I mean, there's still a lot of those songs that are still relevant. I mean, if you got like the 112 stuff and Mace's stuff, like a lot of that stuff comes back. But also a lot of those songs had like huge samples from songs that were a lot older, right? I don't know how much publishing like the original artists received, because they might have snatched up a lot of the, you know, a big percentage of some of the bigger songs. So there's just too much information. There's just too much information that's not known for me to like give a solid opinion.
All right. Well, to further complicate things, here is former Bad Boy artist Aubrey O'Day with more information about this particular deal offer that Diddy presented her with.
I just want to throw you the facts, okay?
Sure.
The deal that we were offered.
I don't know what this is.
And when I say we, not every artist got it. Like Day 26 did not get it. But this is what it is. You can have your rights back.
That's not Aubrey.
To your music after Puff went under and somebody else bought our catalog. Basically, we only get the amounts due since Sony bought our catalog.
Okay.
So streaming for the past couple years, it's about $800, $900, some in the hundreds, okay? And in order to get that, I have to, for any claims or wrongdoings or actions prior to the date of the release, I have to sign an NDA that I will never disparage Puff, Bad Boy, Janice Combs, or Justin Combs' music, or EMI, or Sony ever in public.
So that you just got recently for this thing?
I got it a few months ago when he started doing this. In the news now. So what's happening is artists, some of them, not all of them, are being given streaming royalties and ownership back over our publishing on songs that we wrote at a time when you know that you have to stream a song 1 million times to make a cent.
Yeah.
Okay? It's hundreds of dollars. So to me, when I read this, I'm basically feeling like you're presenting yourself as the benevolent God that's giving everybody back their music. You've turned down millions of dollars to give the millions back to the people. This is the honest to God. You can read from our attorney.
Yeah.
This is the honest to God agreement of what.
So it sounds like she believes it to be a PR move. She's on Team Dame.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm open to changing my opinion upon new information. But I think the funniest thing about what she just said, like, is Justin Combs or Justice Combs, is that the cat that does music, right? That's the cat that is that King Combs? Is that?
Yeah. I think Justin is King Combs, or that's his son who's now an executive. I can't. Well, no, I think Sean. I think the one whose name is Sean is King Combs, but Justin Combs is running. I may have them, or Christian Combs is King Combs. I don't know. I know he has Sean, Christian, and Justin. One of them is an artist, but one of them is playing an executive role now. So I thought the same thing. When he added him into it, it's like, keep my family's name out your mouth. You can't say nothing about nobody. So I'm like, that's wild.
That to me was gonna be the funniest part, because if it's the cat, if it's the son that makes music and be Harlem shaking in every video, like maybe Audrey was talking shit about his music, and to fold that into this NDA is hilarious to me.
No, Justin
if that's
Combs
him.
is the fashion entrepreneur.
But I don't even understand. Like, I don't understand why like this would be a requirement to get the publishing
I
back.
think
Like, I don't.
because I think he's probably planning on him taking over Bad Boy eventually or something like that from an executive standpoint.
Yeah, his lawyer
Gotcha.
must have had a reason for including that in this NDA.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, because even what she was saying is confusing. Like,
Right.
you know, publishing, master, streaming, like people don't. I don't know how she was calculating like the hundreds of dollars, because she said it takes millions of streams to get.
That was wrong. That was an exaggeration. I wish she hadn't said it that way.
I get it, but it just further confuses the viewers when people exaggerate and don't speak specifically about certain things. So it's just, yeah.
Well, let me do this. So Aubrey O'Day herself, I think clearly doesn't give a fuck about music anymore. She
He dropped a song this year.
Okay. Well, then I'll just, like she said, it's just the numbers. She has as many monthly listeners as I do on Spotify, so we're not making a damn cent off Spotify. So let's take that off the table. But in terms of Danity Kane, they have about 500,000 monthly listeners on Spotify alone. Now, the average price paid out per stream is 0.0035 cents. So they're making under $1,800 a month off of, 500,000 streams on one platform. Let's just multiply that by 4 platforms. You get $7,000 a month. The majority of that is over half is going to the label. And then the remainder of that is being broken down by, just percentages of percentages. So like publishing is only half of an individual's underlying composition interest. And how many members are in Danity Kane? Quite a few. So when she says she's only going to be making hundreds of dollars, it could be an exaggeration, but it's not far off. So to me, someone like her and who was the other gentleman, Mark? What is it? Yeah, Mark Curry and Aubrey O'Day don't really have anything to gain from this situation, so they can speak on it. Somebody like Mace, who has been an outspoken critic of Diddy and his deals for, I think, probably over a decade, he has a lot more to gain from this kind of deal. Because let's even look, what is Mace's Spotify? He has 2.8 monthly listeners. So we're talking about a little more money. And then there's the fact that there are the tours. Mace's music gets licensed to this day. Mace's music is getting played on the radio, because now his music is classic. So getting into that radio lane can generate quite a few royalties for your publishing interest. So I think he has more to gain from this than Aubrey O'Day does, and that means Mark Curry and Aubrey O'Day can, I guess, speak more plainly about all this, because they're not tiptoeing around a deal that they may want to actually sign NDA and all. Because if you're getting an extra $1 million a year, and the exchange is you just keeping your mouth shut, you might want to take that. If Aubrey's being offered $1,000 or $2,000 extra a year, then she probably doesn't care.
I wonder what Day 26 did to not be included in the deal.
I know she specifically said Day 26 didn't get this. So I'm like, either they got a better offer or they didn't get an offer at all because they didn't piss Diddy off.
I'm going with the latter. It's definitely. I'm not saying it's definitely, but I believe it's the latter. They had a couple of songs that was jamming. Matter of fact, there were quite a few songs off that album that were jammed, but that was the most randomly put together group in the history of groups.
Diddy's a genius. He's like, let me turn this into a TV show. He probably made more off the TV show than he did off the group.
For sure.
Which I think
they might have a different deal because of that, though. Their deal may be structured differently. They may not be under his publishing umbrella either. So I don't know.
Well,
they might have given some to the MTV.
Yeah. I mean, Danity Kane was formed the same way. That was a Making the Band episode. I mean, series.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So that's funny though that she said they're not included because they were the cats that were told to no. The rappers were told to get the cheesecake. The Dylon and them. They were told to walk.
Why did I think it was people who were trying to be his assistant? I think it was when he was trying to get the assistants, right? Because didn't he have like 3 reality shows?
No, that was Dylon and them that were told to get the cheesecake to walk.
Honestly, I like literally tweeted this like a couple weeks ago because I was in New York. Junior's cheesecake is elite though. Like I can't like. I think it was preposterous that he made them walk the boroughs of New York to get it, but it's amazing cheesecake. I'm gonna be honest, it's great.
Don't people just walk into? I feel like whenever I've gone to New York, I've just walked a lot. Not for cheesecake necessarily.
Yeah,
but
it's a walking city. Yeah, but I feel like how he had them go, like you could have taken a couple of buses or a train and been there expeditiously, and I can't remember, but I feel like he had them walking through Brooklyn to get it, it was like he had them walk for hours to get the cheesecake.
Well, you burn off the calories in advance. Well,
they weren't getting it for themselves.
I would have gotten an extra slice I earned that cheesecake. I'm getting some.
It's a walking city, but I believe they were in Harlem and he told them to walk to Brooklyn. That's a different.
That's far.
I feel like that's so dangerous. I feel like if I'm on one end of Brooklyn walking to the other end of Brooklyn, that's still crazy. But Harlem to Brooklyn is insane.
Yeah, you could get hit by any number of vehicles doing that.
That show was a classic. So yeah, I really don't know how to feel about this until I see the numbers and know exactly what, was offered. But I do know that Diddy, wants to be kind of rebrand himself in the more recent years to Mr. Love, or what did he go by? Love? He just Love, right? Or I want to say Buddy Love, but that's Nutty Professor.
Just Love. Yep.
Just Love, right? Yeah, he just goes by Love. But he definitely still has pettiness in him. The love is not 100%. I think he just lowered his petty bar like a little lower. Because if he's not including Day 26 in there, the love is not 100%. There still is some.
That could be a Viacom discrepancy, though. It doesn't necessarily mean that's Diddy. But I just think there's so many moments where we have no idea what's going on in this deal. It's too hard to draw a conclusion or to make any types of assumptions. Like, I wonder if, because the way that these financing companies are offering these buyout deals, a lot of times they take it for the big, like they'll take a bunch of smaller records just to add to the numbers, because the bigger, Big, Faith Evans, I'm trying to think, there's a couple, even like Mace. There's so many big Bad Boys songs that will make that money back. I think, it's a numbers game when it comes to these finance companies. Like, oh, you have 150 songs in the catalog. Oh, you have 1,000 songs in the catalog. So yeah, as it stands for Danity Kane, it doesn't matter. But for a finance company who's buying it, those numbers mean something, because it's just an intellectual property game right now. People are trying to say they own more real estate. And it's like, there's the physical real estate game, the digital real estate game. And to me, Masters is the next intellectual real estate that people are going after. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting. I would, again, as we had said in the first episode where me and Payne were talking about it, I would love to look under the hood more, because I don't know. I just want to understand the thought process. I think a thing to note is that like Diddy doesn't necessarily need more money, So kind of leaning towards Dame. Yeah, this could be a PR stunt because he also is launching a black business network, which is going to be like Amazon, but for Black people. It's a marketplace. So I just saw the announcement went live, I think yesterday or today. So it's like he needs rapport with the community. He has rapport from the standpoint of a mogul and people respect him. But now I think building community, connecting to people. I think that's really what he was trying to do with Revolt Summit too, build community, connect with the younger generation. So, and it might have not even been intentionally a PR stunt at first, but then when word got out, they're like, let's make it a spin, but I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think there's too many details to know for us to have a conclusive thought process, but I hate it for the artist because I feel like it's kind of a slap in the face to be like, like a lot of those artists, especially the latter ones, got signed and realized that there was really no money in the music industry. I remember watching an interview with Danity Kane like a couple years after they were like blowing. And one of them was like, oh, I don't have a car, something. Granted, they lived in New York, but she was saying it from a standpoint of like, I don't really make money like y'all think I make money. Do you know what I'm saying? And I remember being in high school and thinking like, oh, and my mom had told me that. She's like, there's a lot of people signed wearing fake jewelry, living in borrowed houses with borrowed clothes. And I remember just kind of watching them and how outspoken Aubrey was and how frustrated she seemed to consistently be with Diddy and the team. So I think it's like, to bring this back up is almost like I'm trying to move on with my life. I already feel like I was wronged by you. And now you're trying to make it like use me as a prop in the story that you're telling, but again, I don't know any details. I can't make too many assumptions, but I do hate it for them. I hate when people bring up old shit just to try to like, it's like, bro, let that be. And like, let us live and you live. Now it's just, I don't know. So now I'm with you. I want to know what happened to Day 26. I want to know who got offered the same deal. I want to know if Mace signed an NDA because I don't see Mace not talking about Diddy because he's honest. Mace isn't somebody, I don't think Mace to me doesn't talk shit about Diddy. He's honest with his deal. He's honest with his feelings. And I feel like sometimes when people are honest, people try to make it seem like they're talking shit. And maybe I haven't seen enough of Mace's interviews, but I feel like he approaches it from a respectful standpoint. So I don't know. I'm wondering what all of that looks like.
Mace has moved on to the podcast game. Him and Cameron are killing it with It Is What It Is. I listen to it most mornings. Although Mace is starting to get on my nerves, he needs to step his game up in terms of being knowledgeable about sports. Because at first it was kind of fun to kind of listen to him and some of his ridiculous takes and the things that he says. But now I'm just like, bro, you talk slow and you don't really know what's happening in the sports world. And it's getting a little ridiculous. But they just got I don't know what the number was, but they just got a big deal from Underdog Fantasy to sponsor their podcast. And from what I understand, it's in the millions. So
I love that for him. I feel like Mace was frustrated and struggling for a while, and struggling, not necessarily, I don't know where, I'm not watching his pockets. I don't know where he was, but I do know it was a dramatically different experience for him the last like 10 years than it was in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I think like, I applaud anybody who turns their frustration into what they need, which was cash flow, a platform again, and a space to be creative. So shout out to him.
Yeah, a lot of rappers from that era have found a way to do that.
I mean, he tried going the church route, tried going the G Unit route, he tried a lot of different things, but
G Unit as in signing artists, is that what you mean?
Oh, you signed a G Unit.
Yeah, he was either trying to get signed to G Unit or was on G Unit at one point. I don't know.
That's like what year was this? That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't remember. And I don't even remember. I think it was after the church thing. I don't know. Don't quote me on this.
G Unit hasn't been relevant. And this is no disrespect to
it was when they were still.
Oh, okay. I'll say G Unit hasn't been relevant in a decade. That's crazy. Okay.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm trying to let
But
me
yeah,
look at this. It was the mid 2000s. I don't know. But yeah, he released something with DJ Who Kid, but he never put out an official G Unit album. Anyway, that being said, speaking of numbers, I want to share a tweet from. Okay, never mind. My parents are here and making a lot of noise.
I think from just from that story, I think the long story short is, don't read too much into anything that happens online because you just don't have information. I mean, I know we've talked about this many times before, but it's like the music industry, it's not rocket science, but it's a little more complicated than people have the patience to take the time to understand. So most people don't know what the hell they're talking about. So just reserve judgment. And if you care that much, get all the information. I'll be stopping here. I don't care that much.
Okay.
I'm not.
Fair enough. So this is kind of a hot take type of scenario here, but Track on Twitter at @URProducers and your producer tweeted, if you post your music and there are 0 comments or likes, it's not because I love parents because they don't give a fuck what you're doing.
Well, I didn't even really hear anything.
Oh, I'm hearing doors slam and they're talking and yelling.
I didn't hear anything either.
Okay, good. Noise cancellation on Zoom is doing its job. It's just funny because like I feel like I've shared stories about my parents commenting on my music career in the past. It just feels like your parents, a lot of producers, rappers, especially those who are aspiring, but even professionals, share the frustration that their parents don't take their job seriously. And they're like, when are you going to get a real job? That type of thing. Like, they're never going to stop. They're never going to stop. Never. So just laugh it off. But, when I tell my parents I'm podcasting, they're like, cool. So we'll just walk in the door screaming. So anyway, your producer tweeted, if you post your music and there are 0 comments or likes, it's not because of the algorithm. It's because your music isn't good. I feel split on this.
I don't agree with that. I do think that it is indicative that you probably don't have maybe a fan base, but I don't think it means that the music is bad. I never think those two things are equal. I never think a big fan base means the music is good and no fan base means the music is bad. I feel like that's way too black and white for us to categorically place art, especially since people like Van Gogh were relatively irrelevant when they were alive, and then their stuff became, massively successful after they died. You know what I'm saying? I think it's just about when people are ready for what you have. I do think in the digital era, a lot of artists are hoping that if they post their music, then people will get excited about it. But if I don't care about you, why would I care to click on that? People buy you and then they buy what you're selling. And that's a process that I think the internet has slowed down for a lot of people because they believe that if I just put something on the internet, it warrants a response. And that's not true. So I do think that your marketing isn't good if you post a song on the internet and it doesn't get any likes. But I don't think I don't necessarily think that that's a reflection of your music.
I mean, I said this years ago and I still stand by it. It's one of two things. It's either your music's not good enough or you're not getting it in front of the right people. So I don't see any other option still of what that could be. So
yeah,
you can't just be an artist and post one song. And, with so much content that's created, so many people making posts on a daily basis, like, yeah, if you just post one song and it gets lost in the shuffle, it could just be that, like Erinn said, your marketing is just trash. Like your expectations are delusional. So I still stand by what I said years ago. I still think there's only one of two things that could be happening.
This is a very loaded and emotionally charged conversation, because if you tell somebody, look, it's because your music's bad, the reaction is automatically, the reaction that this guy got. A lot of people were not happy with that tweet. And I understand why. I think there's a high likelihood that if you have 0 likes on something, this is the internet. The internet, and they'll tell you, people find stuff that you don't even want them to find, and they'll comment on it. So to have no plays, no likes, that's a pretty, I feel like that'd be a challenge. I feel like it'd be harder to upload something that got 0 engagement than something that got some engagement. But that being said, when you challenge people, especially artists, because we're incredibly sensitive, and if we don't know anything about the music business and haven't been in it for a while and are delusional, as many of us are, then this is going to get under our skin quite a bit. And the main thing is, like, yeah, if we're self-releasing music, we have to know that it's not just about dropping one song and then sitting back and watching the love pour in and watching the support pour in.
Hey, we can't. I mean, I hear it a little bit.
I
but
know.
We can't.
I hear it. I lost my train of thought.
Well, I'll say this because I think it's the same thing of what I experience on Twitter, right? Like I don't feel like my tweets aren't even really being seen, and I know why. Like I'm not playing I don't have the time to invest in Twitter to be successful at Twitter. So I don't really care that much, right? So I know that my tweets would perform better if I played the Twitter game, right? If I tweeted more, if I responded to bigger accounts. Some people like are following bigger, more active and engaged accounts, so that as soon as they tweet, they reply to their tweet because they know that initial tweet's going to get a lot of exposure. So then their reply is going to get a lot of impressions as well. So they're like on it. I see some people. Yeah, I see some people replying like all the time, and I know what they're doing. Like they can't have that much interest in. I mean, maybe they can, but I think there's a game to Twitter. There's a game to these social media platforms, and if you care about followers and you care about exposure, you kind of have to understand and play the game. My tweets are super random too. Like I tweet a lot about music, but then I might have like a quick political post, or then it might be Lakers season and I might be be frustrated watching a game and I might be tweeting about LeBron or whatever. So that's what I know. That doesn't help me in my Twitter brand to be kind of all over the place with my tweets. I mean, I would say most are music related, but again, you have to play the game, understand the game first. But if you want to be successful on these platforms, so that's just kind of from a marketing perspective, just understanding what you're doing to get your music more exposure, understand how these platforms work. So
with any kind of marketing, with any kind of entrepreneurship, there's a game. I guess we can just call it a game. There are systems that you navigate. Those systems could be the Spotify algorithm on one level, or those systems could be the independent DIY touring circuit on another level. They're all valid. You can use them all in conjunction, or you can use whatever ones you pick that make the most sense for who you are as a person and an artist. Ultimately, there's going to be work involved. And I think that's really why these conversations become so triggering, because as artists, we feel like everything we put out deserves recognition. And then when we don't get it, that's a problem for us. And then we hear the criticism and we hear people spouting the same old platitudes. And the most appealing platitude, I think, is the whole idea, the whole notion, the whole narrative that successful rappers have sold out, or it's just a numbers game. It's about who you know. And then that takes the responsibility off of us. And ultimately, life is about who you know. You can't sit around and say, I don't have any friends. Well, do you talk to people? No. When you sit there and say, I don't have any fans. Well, what do you do? Do you tour? Do you play shows? Do you engage with people? No, but my music's hot. Well, that's a stupid ass way of looking at it. So I don't think disagreeing gives anyone a pass when it comes to this tweet. But it's not true. You can have decent music and not get any engagement when you post it, that doesn't mean you're excused. That actually shows, I think that's even worse. If your music is bad and you're working really hard on it, that's one thing. But if your music is great and you're just letting it go to waste, that's a pretty awful thing for you to do.
I need all these delusional artists to like pick their head up from time to time and explore the landscape and understand how many artists are trying to do the same thing, right? From a manager's perspective, like I've always, or when I was running the label, I would interact with other labels and I kind of know like how, you know, they're working with their artists and managers working with, so I'm kind of like looking at it from a broader perspective because I'm seeing how all these other artists are moving, or even here at Two Lost, right? Like we distribute music. So I'm introduced to hundreds of artists every single week. A lot of artists come through the door and we have meetings right in that conference room. So I'm seeing how all these different teams are moving. I think as an individual artist, sometimes you're just working on your shit. And you just think that you're the only artist in the world, not literally, but like you don't understand how all these other artists are moving and how many other artists you're really competing with, you know, for the attention or the listen or the ears of fans, right? So understand that you're competing with a shitload of artists. Like you are not the only artist in your world. An artist told me one time, like an artist that only had 100,000 monthly listeners. It was like 150 or 200,000 monthly listeners, but he was doing like 3 million streams a week. And he was completely independent, kind of like straight out the bedroom, like doing well. And he literally verbatim told me, he was like, Dame, how many artists are really doing this? I feel like I'm the only one doing it like this. I'm like, are you serious? Are you serious? Like, there are thousands of artists that are doing what you're doing and better. Like, can you really confidently say that to me? Like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
That's artists. Artists feel like because nobody directly around them is doing it, the validation that they get for where they're at is I'm the only one doing it. Like,
that's
crazy. You don't care enough to look around. But I will say, I don't think you're competing only with other artists. You're competing for attention. You're competing with podcasts, TV, people's kids. You're competing for time. Whereas it used to be back when it used to be I'm listening to music, or I'm listening to the radio, or I'm at work, or I'm at home. Now it's all the same. I'm at work, home, driving, whatever. So it's like you're just competing for people's daytime hours. So I think that artists have to see it that way. It's like, it's not even a matter of, do I want to listen to your music over this other thing that I'm going to do?
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. So, I mean, yeah, artists sometimes just get stuck in their small little world and they think everything revolves around, and maybe everything does revolve around them in their own little world, but that's the little fantasy land that you created for yourself. That ain't got nothing to do with how, you know, reality really works outside of your, you know, fantasy land.
No, I think there's something wrong with us. People who, it's like the people who just really want to become police officers or like corrections officers. I'm like, there's something wrong with you guys. But artists too, like, why are we rushing to be artists? It's not all of us. Is there something wrong with me? I mean, there's something wrong with everybody. But a lot of the personality traits that I see manifesting themselves in these declarations, these self-declarations of greatness without any of the work ethic to back it up, they're everywhere in this community. And I don't know what, like, I think a lot of it is like we're an interesting mix of the loudest person in the room, but you know, the loudest person in the room is also the most fear-driven, the most sensitive. So there's a lot of posturing involved. I feel like that's a part of it. A lot of us are just trying to assert ourselves in a space and then convince because it's such a competitive space and it's such a long and lonely journey that I guess we have to, we feel like we have to talk ourselves up all the time and defend ourselves when no one's even attacking us, just so we can feel like we are making the right decision being artists. But yeah, I mean, it's bad. We can just focus on doing the work, or we can not do the work, because it's usually the people who aren't doing the work that are elevating their voices. You see it all the time. People who just don't have fans and aren't playing shows and aren't actively dropping music, they're the ones on social media talking about, you know, I did this when no one else could do it, or I'm a legend in my city, or just stuff where it's like the people have to say that. And I feel like it's similar to sports in that when you're an aspiring pro athlete, there's a lot of, I don't even know if I want to call it ego, but the competitive nature of athletics creates certain types of personalities, you know, people who are very confident in themselves, people who come off as cocky. The difference is in sports, when you talk all that shit, somebody can test that and the results are clear. In music, it's all subjective because we always move the goalposts, and it's not just artists. Like if Dame is talking shit and says he's the best basketball player on the planet, and someone comes along and just makes a fool out of him in the court, it's like, all right, Dame, he was wrong. But if someone's talking about, I'm the hottest rapper in the city, and someone else in the city is like, no, you're not. I have 100,000 monthly listeners and you only have 10 monthly listeners. That person, it's cool in the music space to say, oh, well, numbers aren't everything. You probably kiss some ass, or those are probably fake. So it's a very vague space to exist in. And we can pretty much set our own rules about success, and it just doesn't matter. I think ultimately what I would hope artists to gain from this conversation is to just shut up and work, and keep your head down and work, because all that talking is a waste of energy. And if you do feel like you're alone in this, if you feel like you're struggling in this, there's no shame in embracing that and figuring out what to do next, either through research, either through talking to people, either through networking, either through taking a step back. If it's something more personal, then figuring, you know, therapy and wellness, you know, figure it out for yourself. You know, because if you're constantly in the state of feeling like you need to defend yourself and talk yourself up, then I think something's going on, you know, and I get it, because I don't think any of us have ever not been there. I don't think any of us have ever not felt like we needed to assert ourselves because we felt overlooked or we felt underappreciated or unsupported. But ultimately, that's the nature of the business we're in. This takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of planning. And if we're not doing those things, unfortunately, chances are we're probably not going to get to where we want to be. So wouldn't it be nice? Consider this. Wouldn't it be nice if instead of you having to go on Twitter or Facebook talking about how dope you are, if you went on there and other people were already saying that, and all you had to do was soak it all in and share? Way better. So there's a way to get there.
I think, I know Spotify wouldn't do this, but like, or maybe there is like a place somewhere where you can see kind of where you rank, and just in terms from a metrics perspective, just to, Erinn, you shake your head. Where can you see that? Where can you see
Song Stats?
Where can you see it?
Song Stats. It's an app that I use. Song Stats sponsor us. So you can get the free version, but you can also get the paid version, and it gives you a deeper dive on a specific artist. But the free version, I can literally click on any artist. I can type in any artist. I can view their analytics. I can view where they chart, their popularity by percentage. So it doesn't tell you what number they are in the world, but they're currently, like, this one artist I'm looking at is in their genre. They're in the 52 percentile of popularity. So that means that in their genre and subgenre, this one is rap and hip hop, 52% of rap and hip hop listeners are probably aware of them because of the cross collateralization. So it doesn't give an exact specific, you're ranked number 1 in America or you're ranked number 6,530, but then it goes into specifics of like where your songs are ranked, how many listeners you have across the world, things like that. So it's way more specific than Spotify, but I love Song Stats. I've been using it lately to decide who we're going to put on our festival stages. We have a festival in Tulsa in November called Dreamland. And so just we have our headliner, but picking other people when we're trying to decide as a group, it makes it a lot more diplomatic because we're like, here are the numbers on all of these people.
And I'm not bringing this up because I think artists should care about that number. I think you should care about growth. Like you should be competing with yourself. Like you always want to continue to grow. I'm only bringing that up for the ones that are stuck in this delusional world, thinking they're the only ones that exist. I think you should look at that to bring you out of that, because in having that level of delusion is going to hold you back in so many other ways, right? So hopefully people don't hear this and be like, oh, well, Dame only cares about the numbers, it's not really about that. I'm just, again, speaking to the artists that are delusional, and your delusion is going to hold you back. Like it is, like it's going to hold you back. It's going to make sure that I know you probably think your delusion maybe gets some artists. The delusion holds way more artists back than it does propel some artists forward. You might
it's because people don't combine delusion with work ethic. I'm delusional, but I'll work for it.
Right. But yeah, I'm a believer that yes, some artists were delusional and that helped them get to where they are. Those are, to me, are the outliers. Most artists that I've seen or worked with that are delusional are in the same space or worse off because of their delusion.
Well, because generally speaking, the delusion destroys the work ethic. Because if you've deluded yourself into believing that you're the greatest, why does the greatest have to work? And that's the problem. Now, to what you said about numbers, and people love saying, oh, Dame only cares about the numbers. Payne only cares about the numbers. Why won't you work with an artist that has 0 monthly listeners? Why aren't you giving them free beats? Well, one, you don't know what I'm doing. Two, that's stupid of me to do. That would be a terrible waste of my time when I have no time as it is. But I've been getting an influx of people asking me about, can I get them a deal? And, what does it take to get a record deal? And it's like, if you have to ask, you're not there. It really is about the numbers. Everybody loves to criticize the record labels because they're all about the money. Of course, they're private corporations. They are about the money. So on the one hand, there's that. And then on the other hand, they're always questioning why do they only sign people who have the numbers? Didn't you just spend yesterday tweeting about how the labels are money driven and greedy? Well, every corporation is money driven and greedy. So why do you think that you, who's generating $0, deserves, or it's not even about deserving. Why do you think you, who's generating $0 as it is, and it has very little earning potential because you haven't done the work in community building and creating fans who actually support your music and are there to support whatever it is, merchandise, whatever that you release? Why do you think the labels will likely give you millions of dollars for that $0 earning potential? It doesn't make any sense. If there's a kid on a corner selling empty cups and saying these are $5 each, you're not going to buy that. You're not. I mean, unless they're like really cute. But okay, so maybe take the kid metaphor out of there. If you go to a coffee shop and you want to buy coffee, it's $10 and they hand you an empty cup. You're not
even a full cup for $10. I'm mad.
Right. But that's what the delusion is. A lot of artists are like, I deserve $1 million for my deal. And it's like, why? You've never even played a show.
Yeah.
You have 100 monthly listeners. You haven't even gotten a check from your distributor yet. Why do you deserve that? And there's a lot of anger associated with that. And it's like, don't be angry about it. It's not even like I'm telling artists to appease the label system and like, you guys have to, you guys have to be good capitalists. You guys have to be, rich before signing the deal. I mean, like, if you want to go that route, this is what they're looking for. But the fact of the matter is, whether you want to sign with a label or you want to be DIY, you need fans. And people talk about how numbers are evil. Fans are numbers. People who come to your event, those are numbers. People who listen to your music, who buy your music, those are all numbers. And now my cat wants to harass me. But yeah, the numbers are real. They're not just these elusive metrics that evil labels use as an excuse to not give you what you deserve. I guess at a certain point I hit a ceiling with this conversation because I'm like, what where there's no logic in thinking that sitting back and not putting music out and not building a fan base somehow should result in success. So I don't know. I think I've said enough about that.
Yeah, it's still entertaining people that you probably shouldn't entertain on the internet paying.
No, I've been giving good advice lately. It's just that
you always give good advice. I just think you give too much time to people that don't deserve it.
No, I don't even want to talk about why I'm so activated when it comes to this particular topic, because it has nothing to do with me. I just watch. This is me watching stuff. Sometimes I watch stuff and I cheer it on. Sometimes I watch stuff and I face palm, but this is more of the latter. So that being said, everything is amazing. And if you're an artist and you're on the journey, it will get better. Just work harder and use the resources that are out there. And that's a positive thing. It's, my frustrations with the conversation are anything to get hung up on. This is just a podcast. So we will be back on this podcast, same time, same place next week. I don't know which configuration we'll get. Maybe there'll be a guest. Oh, we do have a guest next week potentially. So we're going to talk about that. I'm excited for that. I hope it happens. I don't want to just be teasing it for no reason. But thank you, Erinn. Thank you, Dame. Thank you, everyone else, for watching this. We appreciate you. This was the No Pain, No Gain podcast.